What are the nuances of these articulations? Now, remember where we were coming from is that habituated. Yeah. So I would now want to take you into the nuances, get into a little deeper into it, dive a little deeper, where what is the seed of articulation, which is attitude and its implications. Communication stems from attitude, and attitude is formed due to our environment, education, and experience. Wonderful. I would want to now ask, what is the environment that they are talking about? Where does your attitude form? In which environment? If you can name it. A one word, single word in answers, please. In which environment is your attitude formed? Family and school, someone? Wonderful. Thank you so much for saying that.
Can you please repeat the question?
The question is, where is your attitude formed? Now, they talk about the environment. So, my question is, which environment? Sachin says knowledge, Tin says workplace as well. Which environment are we talking about? Your attitude being formed where? Family only? Yashodan? Ishan says home and workplace. Madhavi says experiences in life. Sanjana says upbringing. Ah, there you go. Thank you so much, Sanjana. You actually made the word upbringing. Sandeep says family. Akshaya says thought, direct experience, through direct experiences. Mukund says home and hostel. Okay, hostel also. Sanjana says learned behavior. Swagata says it's a continuous and ongoing process. Uh, Govardhan says society. Hassan says beginning from family, when school and workplace. Uh, Prasilla says kind of people we choose to be with. Absolutely, absolutely. And Kumari says family and surrounding. Yashodan, it depends where you are spending your time. Oh, yes. However, ladies and gentlemen, I would want to draw your attention back to Sushant says with friends. However, I would want to draw your attention to what Sanjana had said sometime earlier, saying that that is the upbringing. Now, you see, your environment is different during your upbringing days. If you all go back into your childhood, you would all realize that during the upbringing days, which is probably between the age of uh, uh, 2 years and maybe 5 or 6 years, because that is when your value system gets formed. If you realize there were parents who taught you a lot of do's and don'ts, there were grandparents who taught you a lot of do's and don'ts, there were neighbors, there were relatives, there were elder brothers, sisters, siblings. All of these people formed your excuse me, your environment, and all these people imbibed certain values on you which formed your attitude. The education came to you when you went started or when you started going to school. If you remember, you had your teachers telling you a lot of do's and don'ts. You had your classroom monitors who would I think there is someone who's unmuted. Can you please mute your microphone, whoever is here? Thank you so much. So, getting back to what I was saying, during a school, you had your class monitors, your school prefects, or all those people in the school who would tell you the do's and don'ts, which were again forming your attitude. The experiences, I was happy when I got to know from a lot of you that some of you said during your friends, from your office, from your surroundings, from family, the kind of people that you choose to be with, all of this has been a part of your attitude gradually building when you have started venturing out of home, getting involved with people who are not just restricted to your inner circle. Now, what I mean by inner circle is your inner circle of your family, friends, and known people all around you. But then when you shift out of that, that also adds to the attitude. Now, why are we talking about the attitude? Is because your attitude is something which probably um, the iceberg model was something which came up with a psychologist called um, why do I forget the name? Uh,
Titanic.
Not really. Um, it was no, no, not the Titanic. Sorry, not the Titanic. It was. Why do I forget the name? I'm sorry. Uh, Sigmund Tins. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Very kind of you to quickly uh, write that message. Sigmund Freud came up with this concept of the iceberg model, where he came up by saying that whatever you see of the iceberg is just probably the 30% or the 25%, but the other two-thirds is probably, or the three-fourths probably, which may be around 75% to 80%, is submerged in the water. Now, this simple concept is something that I'm sure most of us attending this session here may not really have had the opportunity of seeing a live iceberg, but I'm sure most of us have had the opportunity of seeing, having sugarcane juice on the streets at the vendors. Yeah. Now, when they put a cube of ice into your sugarcane juice, you may have realized that a major chunk of that cube of ice is submerged inside the juice, and a very little part remains on top. Now, what Mr. Freud tried to say over here through this example was that what you see with your eyes, which is the tip of the iceberg, that is something which talks about the way you dress yourself, your attire, or the skills that you display, the knowledge that you have within you, or the habits that you display. That is something which is only seen from the outside. But what really lies inside, which is your values, your beliefs, your traditions, the ethics, the judgments, the attitude, the motives, the standard, all of these things may very rarely come out, because a lot of times you will see that as humans we have a tendency of not really showing our true side to people. Fear of being ridiculed, fear of being made fun of, or fear of being put down, all of these fears is something that we carry within our minds, and that is what probably prompts us to be a little indifferent when we come across uh, showing the real us. So that is what strikes the attitude. Now, why are we talking about all of this in the attitude part? Is because when you interact with people, it is only out of the habits, the skills, the behaviors that we have realized through our experiences, which we feel are favorable, which we feel are going to work to our benefit, which we feel that it will always make us stand out in a different light. However, a lot of times it's really important to go a step beyond that. Because if you see, most of these things that we have been speaking just now is something which is related to human psychology, which is our way, our style of thinking. If we individually possess a style of thinking, should we not agree that everyone around us would also possess a different style of thinking? And if the answer is yes, then we need to ask us a question, which is that if I need to communicate, if I need to converse, if I need to interact with people, would I want them to misunderstand, misinterpret whatever I convey to them? If the answer obviously is a no, then you need to ask yourself, what are the changes that I need to make in the manner in which I convey my thoughts to people? If anyone has any questions so far or any inputs that you have um, for anything that we've been speaking so far, quickly, just take a minute and put that across in the chat window, please. I'm waiting for your questions, everyone. No questions at all? Okay, let's move on then. Let's move on. Looking at this image here, at this cartoon, do you think this is an effective way of communicating? If yes, why? And if no, why not? If you can just use the chat window and quickly give your responses, please. Saban, thank you so much for responding. There is no body language. Wonderful. Merlin says incomplete information. Sanjana says not effective. Khalida says no. When you say something, it should be comprehensible. Akshay says depends. Santosh says no. Satish says further creating confusion. Sandeep says facial expressions are important. Absolutely, Sandeep. Hassan says better to talk face to face. Priyanka says no, eye contact is missing. Sunita says not the right way. Perfect, perfect. And Sanjana says because we can see that from the expressions. Absolutely, Sanjana. Yashodan says feels they both are strangers. Wonderful, wonderful. So I just asked you this question before I showed you this image that, don't you feel it is important that a lot of things have to be comprehended, if they have to be shared, they have to be spoken out. Yeah. There has to be some amount of thought process that we need to go through. Yeah. Ravi says talking behind and no clear understanding. Thank you so much, Ravi. Appreciate that as well. When we talk about these articulation skills, we now this is where we need to try and understand that what are those barriers which create barriers to our articulation. This is another small little image that I found this very hilarious. I don't know how many of you understand, or by one glance at this uh, image, it's quite self-explanatory, but it talks about a lot in terms of how you communicate, and if the communication is not clear, what can happen. Like they always use this example about managing assumptions. There is a digit or a numeric digit on the floor, and the person standing on either side of them, that digit, probably looks at it in a different manner. The ability to interpret without being biased or judgmental. Now, where does your bias and judgments come from? They come from all the attitude that has been formed over the years, the experiences that you have gathered over the years. And all of that put together starts forming the biases or the judgments. Language and cultural barriers, I'm sure a lot of us, if you take a look at this image here at the bottom of this slide here, you will see that uh, different regions, different people standing all across. Excuse me. And to add to this, I would want to share another video with you to show you how language can be a little dangerous when it comes to not being well versed with language. Take a look at this video and then we'll move ahead.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät, das Überlebensradar.
Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Yeah, over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
I'm not too sure how many of you are actually having a wonderful laugh there. May I request? I just thought as much. Khalida, Ravi, thank you so much. Ritesh, you're on your camera is on. Can you mute your camera, please? Ritesh, if you can hear me, your camera is on. If you can just mute your camera, please. Ritesh Kulhe. Ritesh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm not too sure whether because I can yet see you, Ritesh. Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, but I can yet see Ritesh moving. Anyways, let's move on. So, what really went wrong in the video here? What happened? What was your understanding here? The other party was sinking. What they really meant to say was that they are drowning. Sanjana, thank you very much for typing that. Yeah. Sachin says communication gap, language barrier, English was not clear. Akshaya says poor direction of work and poor hearing was a plus. Ravi says no knowledge on the code, words and misunderstanding of the situation. Sandeep says accent, perfect, perfect. Understanding was unclear. Uh, Medhavi says the entire meaning got changed. Shikha says language has shortcomings. Sanjana says, and due to language barrier, they could not understand. Divya says, lot of noise. And Deepak says he was not attentive. Wonderful. However, ladies and gentlemen, you see, language apparently becomes a barrier because pronunciation in different languages would mean different things. So, for a language, if the word thinking, the word th that we pronounce as th with a T and H, if it's pronounced as sir, it's going to be difficult for someone to comprehend what you're trying to say. What do you think? What do you think? Now, since we've all got this message, we all enjoyed the video here. Can you quickly give me a different way of sending that message? Because if somebody went ahead and asked you if you were probably, God forbid, you ever get into this kind of situation, but if you were to send a message, an SOS, which is a Mayday call, yeah, and you realized, yes, teens, thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, if you had to send a message and somebody was probably looking at your thinking as sinking or probably misinterpreting what you're saying, how would you think on your feet and quickly change the message? Alert, teens. Okay, Shikha says use common words like help or emergency. Absolutely, absolutely. Santosh says help. Wonderful, wonderful. That's nice. That's really nice. Divya says need help. Priyanka says emergency. Wonderful, wonderful. Sandeep says ship is sinking. Okay, Sandeep, I'm not too sure whether that'll again go very well with someone who does not understand the difference between thinking and sinking, but nevertheless. And Ravi says not to use jargons. Medhavi says communication in writing or make code words for different situations? Yashodan says any particular code language. Sunita says can use signboard. Uh, maybe I'm sure when you come up with so many inferences, you would definitely have a lot of ideas that can come up. But thank you so much for sharing all your inputs. That really makes a lot of sense there. Yeah. So there are three very important things which are really important for articulation, which is the listening skills, the probing skills, and the paraphrasing skills. And just let me, since we are a little low on time, I'm just going to go to the next slide where we're going to talk about listening, probing, and paraphrasing one after the other. So in listening, there is a model which most of the times is followed, which is pronounced as a HURIER model of listening, and the HURIER, excuse me, stands for hear, understand, remember, interpret, evaluate, and then respond. Now, a lot of times when you listen to things, your mind immediately gets into a mode of trying to connect the dots and create an understanding. I have observed over a period of time that people generally listen to a lot of things. However, post the conversation, a lot of things are not recollected. My suggestion to everyone here is that, as far as possible, if you feel that it's an important conversation that you are going to be a part of, my suggestion is please carry a paper and pen with you. Now, again, when you carry a paper and pen, there is another secret to remembering things and not really writing down entire paragraphs of after paragraphs. The secret here is that you only write a keyword. That keyword will automatically help you remember what the conversation was all about. I guess someone has again put the mic off mute. If you can just ensure, ladies and gentlemen, to keep your microphones on the mute mode, it would really be helpful for all the other participants. Thank you so much. So moving again ahead, let me give you a small little example. Now, what I wanted to give you an example on was, how your mind connects to your experiences. And that is probably the reason you may and you may not remember things. But again, when you say that I don't have a good memory, I would not agree to it. And I have my reasons for not agreeing to it. And I'll prove it to you right now. I'm going to put you all under a test just now. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to only follow my instructions. And whatever it is, please be open enough. 1 minute. I think there is no problem in here. I don't know what that meant, but if there's a problem, someone, are you able to hear me clearly? Great. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Kumari. So I'm going to give you an instruction, like I said, and I want every one of you to follow my instruction. Listen carefully to the instruction and only do as you are told. Okay. Now, you see, this is what happens because you are able to remember. I'm trying to help you understand how your memory is good and how it also does not allow you to do things when you try and control your mind. Okay. So the first instruction here. Don't think about an apple. What happened? I told you just follow my instruction, and my instruction was clear. I said, don't think. Yes, yes, Mukund, I can see that. Image of Akshaya, image of the apple automatically appeared. Absolutely, absolutely. Tejashri, thank you so much. Okay, since now you know what this thing is about, let's try it once again. Let's give it another try now. Sachin, thank you very much. Let's give it another try. Now try and follow the instruction without deviating. Hold your mind now. Yeah. Okay. Here comes the instruction. Don't think about an elephant. Yeah, Kumari, even I'm laughing over it. What happened this time? Still the same. You are thinking. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I intend to bring to your notice, that it's difficult for us to interpret. When you listen to something, you're not really listening to the instructions. You are latching or holding on, catching on to keywords. And that is where your evaluation might get a little shaky. It might not remain strong. And that in turn will probably create responses which are either unnecessary, unwarranted, not required, or not favorable. So the HURIER model is something that we need to understand, where you listen to what is being spoken, you try and create an understanding, you try and remember it. Like I said, that if you can use a notepad or a pen and try and make a note of it, and try and interpret it in a manner in which it has been conveyed, evaluate it, and then create the response. And I'm sure everything will automatically start falling in the right place. Probing is nothing but probing is clarifying and confirming the understanding of the message. And guidelines for effective probing is identify the behavior, clarify your doubts, validate points, but don't ask leading questions, and stick to one thread. What is the meaning of a leading question? Anyone? If you can quickly just put that on the chat, please. What is a leading question? Ravi saw a huge elephant in the meantime. Tiranjan, that was great. Direct question, wonderful. Deepak says a direct question. Shikha says lawyers ask them in court. Wonderful, Shikha. Yashodan says one question. Tin says ask a question which certainly has an answer in it. Perfect, perfect, Tins. I really appreciate this answer. Most of the times, a leading question is a question which automatically has an answer within it, where the receiver or the speaker or the person who's asked the question gets an answer which he or she intends to listen to. Akshay says questions that prompt towards the answer. Perfect, perfect, absolutely. Yeah. So when you're probing, please ensure that you don't really ask leading questions, because probing is something which will help you gather ample amount of information. And paraphrasing is summarizing what the speaker has said in your own words. The true purpose of paraphrasing is to check your understanding of what has been communicated. Now, a lot of times when you get into a mode of paraphrasing, it also enables the speaker or the person who you are interacting with to get a first hand feel of what you have understood. Because when you speak it out and you express it through your own words, it gives a better understanding to the communicator to realize that you are making an attempt to understand what he or she is trying to say. So these are the three things about the listening, the probing, and the paraphrasing. There was somebody who had talked about body language when I showed the first video. Yeah, so body language communicates a colleague's feelings or intentions, and awareness of your body language helps you assess the message you are sending your colleagues. And body language includes actions and ways of behaving, and eye contact, gestures, postures, and facial expressions play an important role. So body language apparently or rather not apparently, but definitely plays a very important role in articulation, because I think, I would want to draw your attention to the image that I showed you about those two people trying to speak with a question mark in between, where it was all about the body language. If they're not looking at each other, if they're probably standing back to back, or maybe if there's no eye contact happening, or maybe the gestures, the hand movements are not correct, all of this plays an important role in articulation. So one has to be very careful in terms of how you go ahead and create the right message or send the right message out. And especially when you are handling critical situations or sensitive situations, a suggestion here is that you first listen, you make an attempt to understand what is being conveyed. Yeah, while it is being conveyed, you need to acknowledge, which means that there has to be some amount of feedback which may come through the body language, and then you go ahead and act or respond to whatever has been conveyed. Now this is shown in a cyclical form, the reason being that communication can go on favorably, especially in critical situations, only if you are able to do these four things one after the other, which is that you listen, you make an attempt to understand what is being conveyed, you acknowledge it by showing some kind of feedback, which is either through the expressions of your face, by gestures, or by your body language, and then you choose to respond or to act. Empathy communication involves your ability to notice and correctly interpret the needs and wants of others. And empathy involves the person trying to understand what the problems are of the other individual and trying to put themselves in the other person's shoes. Nothing difficult in terms of understanding empathy, but empathy is all about looking at a situation from somebody else's perspective. Because when you have been through a situation, you will be able to realize what the other person is going through. So empathy is nothing but trying to generate or the same feeling or experiencing that same experience and getting yourself into that experience so that you are able to identify what is happening around you. I think we are much in time. However, before we close off this session, Sunita has a question about how about the tone. Sunita, if you can elaborate a little in terms of helping me understand what is this question related to?
Hey, hi, Smita. Yeah, when we talk about the body language and everything, if somebody tone is very high or the pitch is very low or high, how can you articulate that? I wanted to ask you like on that way.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sunita. If you can mute your microphone once again, that I'll be able to answer the question quickly. A lot of times, thank you for asking this question once again, Sunita. You see, if you have noticed, if you have realized, and if you want to try this out, it really works phenomenally well. The next time someone is speaking to you in a high tone, which means that someone is speaking to you in anger, my suggestion is you calm down, control yourself without shouting back or without raising your voice, and very calmly answer that person. You see, it is very difficult to keep shouting at someone when that person is very calmly responding to your queries. Try it out, and it really works. However, it needs a little practice, because and the practice is all about keeping your own emotions in place. So if you're able to do that, I'm sure it really works wonders. So I hope this this answers the question, Sarita. And Ishan has explained the leading question. Missed it. Yeah, Ishan, the leading question is nothing but you ask questions in a manner where the answer is there inside the question, and which most of the times the person ends up either saying a yes or a no, which is a direct response to a leading question. So it's nothing but the question is framed in such a manner where you don't really have to think too much before you ask a leading question or before you answer a leading question. Akshaya says, will empathy cloud one's judgment when making critical decisions? Empathy may not cloud your judgments, Akshaya. However, when you're making a critical decision, you don't have to only look at empathy from one angle. When it is a critical decision, you may want to consider a lot of other factors as well instead of just being empathic towards someone. Medhavi says a question that prompts or encourages the answer wanted. Oh, this is for Ravi, I think. Thank you so much, Medhavi. This answer is for Ravi, where you asked about explain the leading questions once again. So that's Medhavi's made an attempt to answer your question also. Pleasure, Ishan. Thank you so much for saying that. Yes, and Akshaya also says thank you. So, if you have any more questions, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to write your questions. And just before we call off for the day, I would want you to uh, give your feedback on this link here. I am not able to copy this link. How do I copy it? Okay, just give me 1 minute. I think I will have to X out of the 1 minute. I think I will answer all your questions. Just give me 1 quick minute, ladies and gentlemen. We have to, yeah. If you can all leave your feedback on this link that I have just sent across, um, it would really be nice because it would help me and Vince's together to enhance the session, make it a little more better. So please feel free to send your feedback and make it a true feedback so that there will be a lot of learning for us. Medhavi, thank you so much for joining. Divya, thank you so much. And there are a lot of people who said thank you. Akshaya, thank you so much for joining. Sunita, thank you so much for joining. AJ, thank you so much for joining. Uh, Divya, thank you so much for joining. Khalida, thank you so much for joining. And thank you very much, everyone. And I would suggest if Safale, if you're here and if you can take over and close the session for the day. Thank you very much, everyone. It was really a pleasure speaking to everyone, and have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Avinash. Thank you so much, everyone. And if you have any further questions, you can write it to us. You all have our email IDs with you now, and I think we should take your leaves. And thanks for taking your precious time out of your busy schedule and attending this webinar. I hope this webinar is very useful for you guys. So thank you so much. I would really appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much.